Dev, you just had a group of a bunch of young people come and stay here for 5 weeks doing some building projects and community living and adventuring. And it just came to an end. And I'm curious how that feels now to end this little chapter.
There's a little sadness and emptiness there. I like having community around. And there's nothing that fills me up more than having a group of people that are just dedicated to connecting and having fun and some kind of common purpose. And it's fun building stuff and making stuff. I just realized we have matching hats.
Yeah, I love it. Purposeful. During the building, one of the things I really appreciated about it was being able to come up with solutions on the fly and sort of improvise our way out of like sticky situations with the different problems we would run into. And I see this improvisation as like a key piece or like a thread that runs through a lot of the work that you do in your programs. And I'm curious, why is this such a big part of what you do?
Probably because two reasons. One, when I'm on the student end of things, I can't stand it when I just have to blindly follow directions and I can't be creative. And I don't really have a chance to make meaningful decisions or mess up. And it's fun to just surrender and follow directions for an hour or something. But when it becomes a lifestyle or what's expected, it doesn't excite me very much. It starts to feel like a job where I'm counting hours pretty quickly. And so I've just tried to avoid anything that feels like that in my life. And both in school and in my work and so forth. And on the other end, as somebody who's facilitating programs, life is so much more interesting when there's the potential for surprise. And it's like, I think most educators get the idea that their job is to control everything really well so that there are no surprises. And there's a place for that. And you don't want bad surprises like somebody dying. But it feels like there's plenty of that in the world. And there's a shortage of adults who are not only wanting to be surprised, but encouraging a structure where it's likely that we're surprised. And so in building, part of it is that I'm no master builder, so I'm creating it as we go. But part of it is that it's just, when everybody's engaged, when everybody's being creative, when I can just walk away and have a conversation and I come back and people are like, look what we made. That's so much more rewarding than everybody saying, Dev, is this good enough? Does this look right? What do I do next? And the buildings are more interesting too for me in the end. And yeah, I'm interested in not only being around community where people are doing that, but creating educational places where people can learn to be comfortable with that, can learn to be comfortable with ambiguity and not knowing and having to make stuff up. Because I think that's really how life is, at least the interesting parts of life.
Yeah, I've loved it. And it can be uncomfortable. And I've noticed myself like growing into that, like, okay, this is on me now to figure this out. And it's so satisfying when I finally come up with something. And I would also agree. Like the buildings are very unique. When you have to do that, like just looking at the wall, I was like, I remember when we had to do this specific thing to get this board into place, and
Mm-hmm.
like there's kind of a fun character to the whole process. Really
Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah, a lot of people can be uncomfortable with that sort of responsibility or that sort of like unknown. And oftentimes when people do come here for the first time, there's a little bit of a culture shift and like an adjustment to like that's part of it, and then also just like the lifestyle here, like being in the woods or hiking really long distances, just a lot of things that people might not be used to. And I'm curious, is this something that you grew up with, a lot of these things, or was there ever like a period where you like had to adjust to that or like find your comfort in those experiences? Like, was it ever hard for you to do things like that?
Yes to all of the things. I mean, yeah, we are all influenced by our parents a lot. And I spent a fair amount of time in the woods when I was young doing adventurous stuff. So that part came easy.
Mm.
What came harder was actually trying to create the environment where people are motivated to figure out stuff on their own.
Mm.
And you know, it's really easy. Like my first jobs, I was in leadership jobs my whole life. My first jobs, I was river guiding or taking people on horseback rides or doing lots of outdoor education. And it's relatively there. We all grow up with models of people who stand up in front of everybody and try to be charismatic and lead a class. And I feel like I knew how to do that, but I didn't know how to create the situation where people had to really think and figure stuff out for themselves. And I think I got my first lesson in this in science. You know, a lot of science education, if you take a science lab, for example, you go in and you're doing some chemistry experiment or physics or biology or something, and yes, it's hands-on and you're supposed to be, you know, experimenting and blowing up the balloon and changing the temperature, whatever you're doing. But ultimately what they do, they want you to discover some law of physics, or, you know, if the temperature goes up, well, the volume increases. That's the right answer that you're supposed to arrive at by playing around with these balloons. And you learn after a while that if you want to be a good student, that you just got to figure out what the teacher wants you to learn. And then you can skip messing around with balloons and just get the right answer. Or look at the teacher's face and figure out, you know, what they want, and it almost encourages the opposite of what you really want in a scientist, which is somebody who, when you get a surprising result, instead of saying, oh, I messed up, let me try to hide that, they're saying, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, new information.
This could be something cool going on here.
Right.
And later, when I had to become a real scientist and do things myself, I had to retrain myself about how I looked at data and how I looked at the world with the goal of not just proving something or getting the right answer, but actually finding a way to see in a new way, or think in a new way, or understand something differently than it has been understood before. And I think that's true in all the subjects. And I'm interested in being surrounded by people who are comfortable doing that. because it's not always comfortable. You don't know. You don't know if you just messed up or or there's what's going to happen or what you're going to discover or if it's going to be convenient. Sometimes you're doing a science experiment and you're trying to prove this idea you have, and you're really hoping the data goes that way so you can have a nice paper out of it. But it's hard to be honest and be like, oh, actually, that's not what's going on, because it's not convenient. And I think that's true in life. That's true with, you get a new job and you're trying to pay attention to your feelings and how is it working for you. You're in a relationship and it's not quite what you expected, or it's new and different, or you're feeling things you'd never felt before. And that's where life is interesting, I think.
Yeah. Those uncomfortable moments with where you got to be real and scary for sure.
Yeah.
I've heard you talk about and incorporate this concept of this internal sense of safety and this internal sense of freedom. And I think this is something that you can cultivate in order to like handle those situations where it's like, I don't know what to do here. Like, but am I okay in this moment? And one thing that's helped me, and I know you've also been a fan of Byron Katie's work, in terms of like finding that sort of like inner sense of safety and potentially also like that feeling of non-attachment to the outcome. And I'm curious what your experience has been like exploring her work. And am I correct that you have actually done some like mentoring with her as well?
I met her once and she coached me for an evening. It wasn't very, very long.
Yeah.
But what stood out for me is just like she modeled a way of being that you don't see very often in the world, which is somebody who's going to be brutally honest with you and say all the things that are most uncomfortable while loving you. And just oozing this sense of love and empathy, and that combination inspired me, because I mean, it's just it's compelling. It's so often to be liked or loved or feel like to love somebody, you feel like you need to hide part of yourself or contort yourself somehow in order to be lovable. And when you can find somebody who can see it all and talk about it and still love it, it gives you the power to accept yourself and also the courage to change. It's like you don't need to hold on to this idea of how you should be or prevent something bad from happening or have these fears, And I think so often, I mean, basically Byron Katie is just an advocate for accept reality.
Yeah.
Accept reality, and life's a lot easier than when you're living in your idea world of what you hope or think it should be. And just acknowledge what it is. And it's generally okay. And that's what it amounts to. And that just, I think, simple honesty of what really is working or feeling good or feeling bad ends up being kind of profound, because like you look at, we just had all these people from all these different programs, and we'd at some time or another spent a semester or two together adventuring around the world. And you look at all the stories that people were telling when they were sharing their memories, and not one of them was the planned curriculum. it was all something that came as a surprise, that was unexpected, and that we had to figure out together.
Mm.
And then that was exciting. And it was very tempting for both staff and participants in those programs when we noticed that reality was drifting away from what the plan was, to try to corral it and bring it back and be like, that's not what the plan's supposed to be. We need to go this direction. Instead of, embracing it and noticing it for what it was and being curious about where it could go. And when we could do that and all be surprised together, it's just very like, being surprised is really what learning is about. That the profound insights aren't things that you know ahead of time. And you're like, oh, I'm going to learn this thing on next Wednesday. You can do that for very simple things that aren't really paradigm shifts at all, but anything that's going to change who you are in the world and is something that's going to come as a surprise.
Yeah.
And generally it shows itself all the time, and we just we ignore it. We have our blinders on, that trying to make the world like we think it should be. And we ignore that potential learning. And so when you can open yourself to seeing it for what it is. So yeah, thanks for asking. I think that those kind of models, people like that, have influenced me a lot. People who can take a situation and twist it into a new way that nobody expected.
I've definitely had that experience with you also. I feel like I learned a lot of how to do that from you, and then also from Byron Katie, which you introduced me to her. So thankful for that. Yeah, these paradigm shifts, these story changes, narratives about our lives. One that I'm curious about for you personally is your relationship to environmentalism, and kind of how your story around that and in your life, the importance of it has kind of changed and how it sits in you now. I know you have a PhD in ecology, and you're involved in a lot of the politics around here, local politics, like around the water, and just here on the campus, being very conscious with the composting toilets and solar panels and all the things like that. And I'm curious how this, environmentalism fits into your sense of purpose now.
Another good question, Sammy. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't really think of environmentalism. I'm not really a fan of hardly any isms. I don't think. They just feel like broad generalizations that don't actually give me a lot of guidance or flexibility. And I care a lot about the natural world. And I always have. I spent my childhood out in the woods, chasing butterflies and things. And from an early age, the times where I cried the most often was when my favorite forest was clear cut, or I saw something just destroyed, some wild, beautiful thing destroyed. And it affected me a lot. And I wanted to do something about it. I wanted to figure out how to change all that. And I put a lot of energy into that. And I was pretty idealistic, to the point where I think it was hard for people to be around me. Because, a lot of our modern day life, you look at everything you can buy in the grocery store. And when you are an ecologist and you know the stories and how that was made and where it came from, often the story is kind of sad. And nobody wants somebody around there reminding them of, let me tell you the story of that banana.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about, those shrimp that you're eating right there and enjoying for dinner so much. But let me tell you what they're doing, and nobody wants that. And I would often go into a store and be hungry and walk out having bought nothing and still be hungry and just feeling kind of sad and lonely. And that was a big chapter in my life. And yet it was obvious that I was trying to live very simply. I invented all these ways of trying to not consume anything and measure my consumption and try to be the change I wanted to see in the world and all that. And it inspired some people. But I don't think it just inspired the people who already agreed with me. It wasn't changing anything. And I was feeling kind of hard and judgmental during a lot of that. And, really I was feeling hurt, but I didn't know how to cry about it very well then. I just judged people. And, you see a Hummer and driving down the street and you make some comment about it, or you see a big fancy house and make a comment about that, or, it's easy to separate yourself and say, I'm good, they're bad, they need to change. I look around the world and the truth is I don't like being around people who think like that either. It's, you end up tiptoeing around, afraid of being judged. It's kind of a black and white way of thinking. It's the opposite of surprise. It's like, I know the solution and I know what you need to do to be a better person. And, I don't know. I don't think it really leads anywhere. And I think the environmentalist movement in general has suffered from a lot of that. And, a lot of people doing the right thing, trying to do the right thing because they're afraid of looking bad rather than because they're caring and feeling. And so I've made a conscious effort to change how I think and communicate around those things just because it feels better for me. And sometimes I suspect I just sold out and became a wimp. I don't know. But I know I've had a chance to be around people who were dying or who died a number of times. And when somebody's dying, it can be a beautiful thing. And what makes it beautiful often are people that have accepted that they're dying and can see the beauty in it and want to be present for it. And, if somebody's dying because their blood's running out of their aorta, you want to put on a tourniquet, you want to do something. But when they're like dying of cancer, and it doesn't feel good to have somebody running around being afraid of the death and trying to fix it somehow. I don't want that when I'm dying. I want people who are at peace with what's currently happening. And after being around that enough, I had the thought that, what if I looked at the natural world kind of the same way? A lot of it's dying. There's just no way around it. Things are changing quickly. I look out the window right now. I see all these house sparrows 15 years ago, it was all bluebirds. The house sparrows have moved in and killed all the bluebirds.
Whoa.
And why is that happening? Because house sparrows are comfortable around people. And part of it's me contributing it. We have these chickens down there, and I feed the chickens, and that brings in the house sparrows and Eurasian collared doves and these other introduced species. And then they're killing the bluebirds, and it breaks my heart.
Wow. Yeah.
And I see it, and I see that I'm part of it. And I've, I try to do things differently to minimize it. And still, it's inevitable. It's inevitable that I'm going to be contributing to change. So I try to also contribute changes in a way that I find beautiful and just balance them out. But I want to see it. I want to feel it. I want to cry about it. And I don't know where that's going to lead. But it feels better. It feels better to have people actually acknowledging what's going on. Again, back to accept the reality of it, and being with it and looking for ways that, something that we haven't occurred to us yet. It's we're all stuck. There's so many brilliant people who see this issue and see where it's going, or think we see where it's going, and don't really know what to do about it. And there are millions of people who would drop what they were doing and be part of it if they saw something they thought really was going to affect it in a positive way.
It can be kind of paralyzing or hard to figure out like what feels like a actual thing that matters in the grand scheme of things. Because I mean, like, even I'm thinking of like the oil companies making commercials about recycling and things like that, and like putting it on the individual, and it's like kind of part of that is like living in a dream almost, and not accepting the fact that it's like, oh, there's not a whole lot that I can do, at least just me. Maybe if you get enough people who are also like feeling it and looking for solutions, then there's something there, but it can be kind of hard.
And part of what makes it so ominous is that it's so big. And part of what makes it big is that we're all reading the news and seeing this global thing and thinking about the future, and oh my gosh, the peat moss is, the peat is melting and contributing carbon dioxide, and what can I do about that? And it takes your attention off of the things where you can have an effect, right out here. If the result of my life is that this soil is better than it was before, that's a tangible thing, easy feedback. I can do something about it. And that's what fills me up anyway. It doesn't, I pay attention a little bit to the news so I can feel like I'm a quality citizen. And yet, we just had a ton of people here making community and making these beautiful things, and it felt right. And it's clear that there are plenty of places to put my energy that feel good and right. Will they lead somewhere? I don't know what effect they'll have. But I don't feel, even though I mourn all the sadness and I see it dying and all of that, I don't feel hopeless. I don't feel paralyzed. I feel no shortage of beautiful, wonderful things to do that can make a difference. I know all kinds of wild things that need support, people down the street that need love and support. And that conversation of like, oh, it's warmer this year, less snowpack, the world's going to hell. It's just kind of a boring conversation.
Yeah.
It's not one I want to have. I'm more interested in, not because I'm avoiding it, but because it's just not interesting.
Yeah.
It's everybody knows the answer. We're just going in circles. I'd rather create something new.
Let's switch gears a bit, and talk a little bit about education, and specifically like looking to the future. You've got this new thing that you're embarking on pretty soon with a bunch of middle schoolers. And I'm curious what excites you about this new thing and kind of what you're bringing into it from all your past experiences with education. Yeah, just how you're feeling about it.
That's a big question.
Yeah.
I've been doing educational things for 45 years or something. So, a lot of what I'm bringing into it is really my being that's been shaped by a lot of things. I'm excited. I mean, it was this thing, I didn't scheme it up. It was something that just was here and offered itself, and people were looking for something to do with their kids, and came to me and said, "Are you interested?" And I didn't have anything else planned. And it's a little scary to say, yes, I'll commit a couple of years to a small group of local kids. And, it's a job that really isn't going to pay very much or doesn't lead to any kind of promotion or anything. It's just being with young people and loving them and trying to live well. And yet it fills me up, because in the end, that's what I think it's all about. It's just trying to figure out how to do that well. And I've been lucky enough that I've spent a lot of my life in situations where I had the power to create whatever I wanted in education. Not only on my programs, but in big public school programs and so forth. We were creating things and designing things, and it was fun. And in the end, I put so much energy into trying to design the perfect system. And I believe in systems. I mean, I'm an ecologist. I see patterns and the importance of them. And yet, in the end, what actually allows for the kind of environment that creates magical moments with young people and really truly learning moments has less to do with the system and more to do with just the presence of who's ever in the room. And if there's somebody who can take a situation that has the potential to be hard or scary and turn it into something where there's learning and growth and softness and connection, that's a beautiful thing. That transcends everything, So somebody stuck on a math problem, simple thing, happens every day. And what's interesting with that is where that feeling of stuckness can go a lot of ways. You can have somebody that ends up feeling bad about themselves. You can end up with somebody that discovers some new formula that they'll follow and feel like they're being successful. You can have, the group it can cause division in the group, and some people feel like they're faster and better than others. And you can also create connection and healing and teamwork and a sense of I have the ability to figure this out on my own. I don't
Mhm.
need to ask somebody, or, wow, my need got met and now I want to help others. Or
Mhm.
there's so many things that can come out of that. And I'm interested in being a person that can create. I've started to put less energy into changing the system and more into just trying to be a person that can have these common everyday situations
Mm.
lead to something that feels good and
Mhm.
opens up possibilities. Um, and this is a chance to do that.
Mm.
And how it will play out, I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, we're going to try and innovate a model. We're going to have just kind of like a block system, and
Mm.
every month we'll pick 2 subjects, and the goal is I don't care what they pick.
Mm.
They're going to pick them. But my role is to facilitate a yes that means something, and a
Mm.
commitment that lasts for a month. And when they lose it, that meaningful conversations happen, and that they experience what it's like to give their all to something
Mm.
and see where it goes. Or they experience what it's like to say no, I don't want to do it, and see where that goes. But that we have honest conversations
Mm.
and make agreements that mean something,
Mhm.
and practice surrendering to our choices, and having, a sense of freedom uh, throughout. I think freedom and full commitment go together.
Mm.
And often, it's easy to avoid commitments as a
Mm.
way of feeling free. It can be because so often we approach commitments in a way where we feel like we trap ourselves.
Mm.
And so just creating other options to that, that's
Mhm.
what excites me. And it's still all new for me. I'm trying to do it myself. That's what makes it fun.
Mm. Definitely. I mean, I'm reflecting too. You're mentioning all those different components to the learning process, like feeling bad about yourself because you can't get the math problem, but then also like you feel good about it. And then I'm just like thinking about all the different points in the building process where I'm like, yep, I experienced that and that and that. And I think you've done a really good job throughout these 5 weeks too, like facilitating that process. I'm like hearing you speak about it now, and I'm like, that's kind of like exactly what you were doing throughout this process. It feels like, um, yeah, like I remember feeling frustrated because I cut a board too short, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go start setting up lunch now. I'm not feeling this anymore. But then I've had moments where like I'm thinking about it for a while, and then I finally get it, and it's like great. And being able to go through each of those experiences and then like feel good about it in the end feels really special, because then I'm not afraid of failing. And really what the failure does is it just opens up a new sort of adventure or a new thing to explore. Like, okay, now how do we deal with this? Like, do we need to just, be humble and like go get a new board, or do we like try to fix it in some
Right.
other way? And it's like, I've had to learn to do that too. Of like, okay, I just messed up and that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm curious too, with all these, it seems like you explore a lot of new territory and are constantly trying new things, and you're not afraid of the unknown. Um, and yeah, I'm curious within that, what feels like your guiding light that tells you like this is the right way to go, or this is the direction, especially when things are risky, or there's like, you know, I think a lot of people are afraid of kind of thinking outside of the box because we're so used to following rules, or being afraid of failure, or learning how to do something the correct way, or even just kind of not giving ourselves permission to really imagine things. And so I look at you and I see somebody who has been able to sort of challenge a lot of those things. And I'm curious, as you're doing that, what feels like the guiding light for you, especially because you've mentioned before, like, that you can see both sides of the picture of like, I understand this side and I also understand this side. So it's like hard to know like what's the right direction to go. Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, choices make life really hard, huh?
Yeah.
I had somebody come up to me and say, I think options are a bad thing. um, the you know, the answer has changed over time.
Mm.
And I would say that for a lot of my life, I would try to have some clear intellectual mission statement or something that would offer guidance or some idea. And as I look over time and I just look at the world too, and in my personal experience, and I see so many good ideas that led to sometimes not very good places,
Yeah.
things that became dogmatic
Yeah.
and I see places that we were all afraid of and tried to avoid that ended up being the highlights. I really lost a lot of faith in my ability to discern what is a good idea. But I've counterbalanced that, but I've increased. I think when I was young, I had very limited emotional intelligence. I think I was probably more than most kids, but I look at many young people, and especially boys, but I think all young people are surrounded by a world that sees emotions as the obstacle to being smart or capable. You know, emotions are drama or self-indulgence or weakness or something. And yet, more and more, I've discovered that when I give them space in myself and others, that they lead to really important places. There's a lot of wisdom coming out of there. Like when you're really paying attention, you know if the conversation we're having right now, if we're feeling more connected than we were a minute ago or less connected. And you know if, as you listen to yourself speak, if it feels really true or not. You know, I know there's a lot of wisdom there that I've spent a lot of my life ignoring or trying to fix, trying to make it go away, you know, so that I got to make this person feel better so that they feel good enough again to climb the mountain. You know, the goal is climbing the mountain. I know if I can just get them up that mountain, they're going to feel so happy about themselves. So when they start feeling sad and hopeless and like they need to quit, I've often, you know, in the past been a little afraid of that. Like, oh no, here's a blow to my agenda. we're not going to be successful. They're not going to be happy. So, you know, I'll distract them or divert them or give them pep talks or, you know, and sometimes all that kind of works. But as I look at, I've been working for a lot of different programs that did a lot of outdoor adventure, but also often did it in a way where, again, the emotional stuff was just discouraged. And so much was lost. You know, people, they may make it up the mountain, but they still feel like they can only do it with you there,
Mm.
or they made that part, but they denied another part of themselves that then they feel like they have to hide because it's not a good part, or and there starts being this kind of division in ourselves between good and bad.
Mm.
And people feel, they're like, oh, if they really knew what was going on, they wouldn't love me. And there's all this stuff that happens. And more, I found that if I'm at peace with that emotion, whatever's coming up in myself or somebody else, and I can just love it and be okay with it, it goes away a lot faster than if you deny it. And it's like a baby. You let it feel what it's feeling all the way, and 30 seconds later, the crying baby is laughing.
Yeah, totally.
And it's gone. But you tell it that it shouldn't cry anymore, and there's something in there that lasts for a lifetime or generations, whereas you're just okay with it crying for a while. And I look at the educational environments I've been in, and certainly it's rare that you have teachers or leaders who are really comfortable with the reality of emotions, or know what to do with them besides send the kid to the principal or send them home, or but to see them as something important and interesting that we could all learn from, and that are representative of all of us. And so, I think young people get the message that inner voice that's giving them guidance is a bad thing. It's kind of, because it contradicts what the world wants from you. It actually becomes like this sinful voice. And one thing I'm motivated to do is to try to strengthen that inner voice that the world often sees as a rebel, but I think it's just us being true to ourselves. And I'm trying to learn how to pay attention to that voice too, because that's really, I think, where my guidance comes from these days. It's just, there's always this place within me that on some level knows and feels like it's not just within me, it's somehow bigger. And I want to add that it really feels good living that way. It feels like the resources that you need to be okay in any situation they're always there. You don't have to go out and find them. You don't have to recruit. You don't have to worry about losing them. They're there, and you don't feel alone. I don't feel alone.
It leaves more options on the table when you're not afraid of following that, and not afraid of the emotions that might come up in the process of following that too. And it can, create a lot of really meaningful experiences that touch something deeper. I've heard you talk about those in terms of them being called it moments. Those moments when you feel like this is it. This is, I'm really following it, or I'm really like connected, or just like in touch with something deeper.
Yeah, those magical moments where you can tell you're just so alive and often very connected with yourself or the world or somebody else. And the thing is that you can't hold on to them. They always go away. That's the very nature of them. And it's so beautiful to live in a way that they keep coming in different forms. And one moment your magical moment is laughing with the group, and the next moment your magical moment is feeling this profound sadness. It feels like it's connected to everything, and you're feeling all the sadness in the world, and holding it, and it feels okay. And then the next moment, it's a different thing. And I'm trying to remember where we were going with that. That it feels good.
I guess the question there would be what advice you would give to people, maybe young people, but just anybody who wants to create more of that in their life.
Yeah, I think the place you start is being fine with where you're at. Wherever that is, just be real with what the current, whatever your current reality is. Maybe your current reality is that you don't know what to do, or you have a hard relationship with somebody important in your life. And I think there's so much power in just admitting it, and admitting that you don't know what to do, and talking about it, showing that you don't know what to do to the world, and being curious, interested in what the other options are that you don't see yet. And I think you go through that cycle a few times, and it just grows. I mean, this group we had here these last 5 weeks, everybody came in and we made no plan.
Yeah.
We had no plan for who was going to do the dishes, no plan for who was going to cook meals, or who was shopping, or who was in charge of finances. We just put some money in a little can, and we said building will just figure out day to day what people feel like. And if I tried to start a program with people who hadn't experienced that before, with that beginning, I think it would have freaked a lot of people out. And it did. The person who had not had that kind of experience that was part of our group, it did freak them out, and they were uncomfortable. But everyone else had this inner resource where they were like, we don't know how it's going to work out, but we trust we're going to be okay. We trust we can talk about it, figure it out together, take care of ourselves. If something comes up we need to talk about, we'll be okay. We can just wait until something needs to be figured out. We don't need to try to anticipate what the problems are going to be and prevent them. And that was refreshing. And it seemed like it was, my guess is partly that we just practiced it, in whatever program they were part of. And it's like a little seed. It starts growing. You can't stop it.
I think that's a really good testament to the previous experiences that we've had here, for us to be able to just go into this totally new thing and not a lot of structure, and then make it work, and felt really easy. Surprisingly.
Yeah. So you started out asking about internal sense of safety, and I think everyone carried I'm going to be okay, because I've practiced being okay in challenging situations before. We go out and do these survivalist trips where we bring no food and clothing and all kinds of stuff, and we're out there hungry and cold and whatever, but we're not practicing doing hard things. We're practicing being okay and feeling safe in the face of adversity. And the minute you're out there suffering, that's counterproductive. You want to learn to, yes, you're feeling pain. Yes, you're feeling hungry. Yes, you're cold. Yes, you don't know what's going to happen. And yet there's still part of your attention on, and I'm okay. I'm not alone. I'm capable.
Yeah. That's something that I feel called to share, because I recognize how important that experience is. I mean, the name of this channel, Invitation to Play, like part of that for me is like inviting other people into an experience where they have that safety enough that they can like let themselves be creative and playful even in those like unknowns and challenging experiences. Yeah, I see it like in the culture, in schools, and in even just like people that I know who maybe are like really stuck in like fearful thinking about things, like whether it's religious or any swath of things, which I think comes from a good place, but I just like, I see how limiting it is. And so I just like want to share that with people. And I think it's just so worth it to go and do those things and yeah, to take those risks and live life to its fullest, really.
Ask all the scary questions.
Mm-hmm. Something that you said recently that stuck out to me is that often you end up doing what you care about more than what you're good at, which involves, a lot of like new territory and things like that. And I've been taking that to heart. Like, I think that's another place where people feel limited is because they're like, oh, but I've already had this experience. It's like, there's so many new things that you could follow. If your heart's telling you like, go there, it's like powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are many places I don't still follow that model. Like I listen, I'm like, I really care about music, but I rarely sing, partially because I don't think I'm any good at it. So I'm, there's not that hope of like ever being great and impressing people or whatever. But the reality is when I'm singing and just inside myself, it feels right. And it's hard to trust those things. It does. It's something that you can have that intention and then see when it's not true and just kind of laugh and forgive yourself and try again. Mm-hmm. It's, again, it has to do with that inner voice of knowing and growing up in a world where you feel like if you trust that voice, you're going to end up working in a McDonald's for minimum wage and being screwed over in life, because you need to succeed in a certain way. And the people who know what that looks like are out there somewhere telling you, that it looks successful to, successful people travel around Europe and go to these kind of colleges and get these kind of jobs, and non-successful people do these other things. And we're just full of that. And it's hard to trust your own choices and your own voice. And then you see people go the other way too. They've been so traumatized by being told what to do that they won't listen to anybody and are just in constant fighting back reaction. And yet that's not free either. That's you always got to do the opposite of what anyone tells you to do. You're not free. And you can't receive any feedback or learning that way. And so how to trust it in a way that's open and soft and curious and not dogmatic.
I feel like I've gotten deeper in that knowing since being here for these 5 weeks, and I've really appreciated the whole experience and the improvisation and the unknown and the feeling my sense of agency, and then also like the contribution to the community. And it's felt really special to be here. So
thank you for being here. It added a lot.
Appreciate you, Dev.
Likewise, Sammy.
Thanks for the convo. That was awesome.
All right. Cheers.